Imagine waking up tomorrow without that nagging sense of dread, that heavy feeling that no matter how many plans you make, your life remains stuck in the same disappointing cycle. Now, what if I told you the reason you feel trapped has nothing to do with laziness or lack of discipline, but something deeper, something hidden, deep inside your own mind? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's holding you back and how you can finally break free from patterns you thought were permanent. I know what you're thinking. You've seen motivational videos before, and nothing has changed. But this isn't motivation. This is something radically different, something Carl Jung discovered long ago but few people dare to explore. It's about the shadow, the unconscious part of you that quietly sabotages every step you take towards a better life. Right now, your shadow is calling the shots, writing the script of your days, keeping you small. But once you see it, once you understand how it operates, everything changes instantly. You'll stop wasting years waiting for the perfect moment. Instead, you'll start taking the tiny actions that build real momentum. You can't afford to wait, because the longer you stay blind to your shadow, the stronger it gets. This is your wake-up call, the clarity you've been missing, delivered without hype, without false promises, just a proven path to genuine transformation. Stay with me to the end, and you'll leave with the tools to finally live the life you always knew was possible. Like this video, subscribe, and let's start right now. Have you ever felt that haunting frustration of watching someone else rise, build, transform while you remain stuck in the same place? You've read the books, you've binged every motivational speech, you've sworn to yourself that this time you'd finally change. But then, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, the old patterns return. You drift into distraction. You scroll through your phone until your ambition feels like a distant dream. Society calls this laziness, as if your entire worth could be reduced to a single label. But what if the truth is far stranger and more unsettling? What if you're not lazy at all? What if there is a hidden part of you, your shadow, working tirelessly to keep you small? In the language of Jung, the shadow is the unconscious vault of every fear, every humiliation, every old wound you never dared to face. It is cunning, protective, and relentless, and every time you set a goal, it hears a threat. Your shadow is not evil. In fact, it believes it's saving your life. Imagine you stand at the edge of a cliff. To your conscious mind, success looks like soaring into the sky. But to the shadow, stepping forward means falling to your death. This is why every new ambition triggers an invisible war. You feel an ache in your chest, a heaviness in your limbs, a fog in your mind. These are not random. They are your shadow's resistance, an ancient defense mechanism designed to keep you in the safe, predictable misery you already know. It whispers convincing stories. You're not ready. You're too tired. You'll fail anyway. And the worst part is, you believe it. You call it reality when it's really just the inertia of your old survival patterns. Think about how many times you've promised yourself, tomorrow I'll start. Next week, I'll change. But when the moment arrives, you negotiate with your own mind. You invent delays, you search for more information, you wait for perfect conditions. This is not weakness. This is the shadow's brilliance. It doesn't fight you head-on. It seduces you into staying exactly where you are by offering 1,000 tiny justifications. Procrastination isn't random. It's a meticulously crafted illusion of safety. Every time you obey it, your shadow grows stronger, your confidence shrinks, and your dreams drift a little further away. Most people never realize that this invisible war is happening. They spend decades blaming themselves for lacking willpower or discipline. They compare their worst moments to someone else's highlight reel, never questioning the unseen forces within. This is why motivation alone fails. You can watch hours of inspiring videos, feel a surge of adrenaline, and still collapse into the same habits. Because adrenaline is fuel, and if you pour fuel into a machine designed to protect you from change, it just burns faster, spinning the same cycle again and again. The first step to escaping this cycle is to name it. Call it what it is. Resistance born from your shadow. The moment you name it, you create a sliver of distance between you and the stories it tells. You begin to see that these thoughts, "You're worthless, you'll fail, you're lazy," are not truths. They are echoes of old pain, old fear, and the shadow has been repeating them for so long, you forgot they were optional. If you never question them, you become their prisoner. But if you look them in the eye, they start to lose their power. Imagine this. Every time you feel that urge to retreat, to postpone, to numb yourself, it's a flare fired by your unconscious, warning you of imagined danger. Most people respond by retreating further, but what if you did the opposite? What if you saw that resistance as proof you were standing on the threshold of transformation? Because the shadow only fights when something truly matters. It doesn't waste energy on trivial goals. The stronger the resistance, the closer you are to something that could change everything. This is why the people who achieve real change aren't the ones with the most motivation. They are the ones who learn to recognize resistance for what it is, a signal, not a stop sign. They stop expecting the fear to disappear. They stop waiting to feel ready. Instead, they move forward while carrying their fear like a heavy rucksack. They understand that the shadow is always present, but it doesn't have to be in control. Every small act of defiance, a single step, a single choice, weakens its grip. So the next time you feel that heaviness settle on your shoulders, that voice whispering that you can't, remember this. Your shadow is doing its job. It's protecting you from the unknown. But you are not a child anymore. You get to decide whether you stay hidden or step into something larger. This invisible war doesn't end in a single battle. But every time you take action in spite of the resistance, you reclaim a piece of yourself that has been locked away. And in that reclamation, you become something the shadow cannot control. Someone awake, someone dangerous, someone free. Somewhere inside you is a hidden archive of every moment you were told you weren't enough, every time you tried and failed, every time you reached for something and were laughed at, every time you were ignored or dismissed. Over years, these memories didn't vanish. They sank into your unconscious and became the invisible architecture of your self-image. Jung called this the shadow, and it isn't just a poetic metaphor. It's a force that operates silently, scripting your behavior, deciding what you dare to want and how quickly you retreat. Most people never question it. They call it reality. They say, "This is just who I am," without realizing those words are the shadow's most cunning lie. Radical self-honesty means tearing away this mask, not to humiliate yourself, but to finally see what's been driving you all along. Because you can't transform what you refuse to acknowledge. Think about the last time you felt inspired to make a big change. Maybe you wanted to start a business, leave a toxic relationship, or simply get your health in order. At first, your mind lit up with possibility. You imagined the freedom, the pride, the relief of living a different story. But almost immediately, a quiet dread rose to the surface. What if you fail? What if people see you and mock you? What if you succeed and then lose everything? These questions didn't appear out of nowhere. They are the shadow's warnings, echoes of past hurts, and the more you try to drown them out with hype or positive affirmations, the louder they become. Because the shadow doesn't disappear when you ignore it, it festers. Radical self-honesty means creating a space where these fears can finally speak. Imagine sitting down at the end of a long day and asking yourself, without judgment, what am I truly afraid of? Let the answer come, even if it feels absurd or childish. Maybe you're scared that success will isolate you. Maybe you're terrified that you'll outgrow the people you love. Maybe deep down, you believe you don't deserve anything better. This is not weakness. It is old pain, wearing the costume of procrastination, perfectionism, or fatigue. But once you name it, you start to reclaim your power. You begin to see that your resistance is not some cosmic verdict on your worth. It's just a pattern you learn to survive. Most people never do this work. They prefer the comforting illusion that their failures are due to circumstances or lack of discipline. They scroll endlessly for a secret trick that will finally unlock their potential. But you can't hack your way past your own unconscious. You have to meet it face to face. This is where real change begins, not with another productivity system, but with the courage to look at your shadow without flinching. Because when you understand what it's protecting you from, you can finally decide whether you still need that protection. It's easy to think of the shadow as an enemy, something to be eradicated. But Jung taught that the shadow is also the seat of your hidden strengths, your creativity, your resilience, your raw hunger for life. It's the part of you that remembers how to fight for what matters. When you make peace with it, when you accept that it is trying to keep you safe in the only way it knows, you stop wasting energy on self-blame. You start using that energy to build something real. Imagine you're carrying a heavy bag you've never opened. You complain about its weight. You resent how it slows you down. But when you finally unzip it, you realize it's filled with old stories and bruised hopes. Some of them you don't need anymore. Some are worth honoring and then releasing. Radical self-honesty is unzipping that bag. It is the moment you choose clarity over comfort. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first, but clarity is the birthplace of all transformation. In this work, there is no instant gratification. You won't wake up tomorrow free from all your fears. But you will wake up knowing why they exist, and that alone is revolutionary. Because the moment you understand the real source of your resistance, you can stop fighting yourself and start moving with a deeper sense of compassion. You will see that the shadow isn't here to ruin your life. It's here to remind you that everything worth having requires stepping into uncertainty. So tonight, I challenge you to ask a single radical question. If I wasn't afraid, what would I do differently? Let the answer come without censorship. Write it down. Read it aloud. Sit with it until it stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a possibility. This is how you begin to unmask the hidden fears that have kept you small. This is how you plant the seeds of a life no longer governed by old ghosts. Because the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself is that you have no power. The truth is, you always did. You were simply too busy running from your own reflection to notice. You've seen how the shadow works. You've felt its grip in the tired excuses, the hollow promises to start tomorrow, the sudden paralysis every time you stand on the edge of change. But understanding your shadow is only the first step. Awareness alone won't transform your life. It's like finding a map to a hidden treasure and then leaving it folded on the kitchen table. You can spend years dissecting your fears, naming every defense mechanism, analyzing why you procrastinate. But if you never move, nothing changes. Jung understood this paradox better than anyone. Insight without action is just another form of avoidance. The only way to break the cycle is to take small, deliberate steps, tiny acts that the shadow cannot sabotage because they are too modest to trigger its full resistance. Think of it this way. The shadow is always watching for big declarations. When you say, "Tomorrow I'll change everything," it prepares an arsenal of doubt and fatigue to stop you. But when you commit to something small, a 5-minute walk, a single paragraph, one honest conversation, it doesn't see a threat. It stays dormant, unprovoked. This is why the most powerful transformations don't begin with grand gestures. They begin with humble consistency. The size of the action doesn't matter. What matters is that you finally move, proving to yourself that you are no longer a prisoner of the same tired narratives. Imagine the first day you decide to act differently. You feel the old resistance whispering, "This is pointless, it's too small to matter." That voice is the shadow trying to convince you that if you can't do everything, you should do nothing. But here's the secret. Every small action is a crack in the wall it has built around you. Each repetition widens the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. This isn't motivational fluff. It's a practical truth. Tiny steps accumulate. They create evidence that you are capable. And eventually, they snowball into unstoppable momentum. Most people never experience this because they demand perfection. They set impossible standards and then collapse under the weight of their own expectations. When they fail to meet them, the shadow seizes the opportunity to say, "See, I told you you'd fail." And so the cycle repeats: ambition, resistance, shame, inaction. But when you give yourself permission to start small, you bypass this trap entirely. You trade the fantasy of instant transformation for the reality of steady progress. Over time, this builds something far more valuable than hype: self-trust. Picture someone standing in front of a locked door they've been afraid to open. For years, they believed the door was too heavy, that the lock was unbreakable, but the truth is it never required brute force. It only required the willingness to try the handle, to jiggle it every day, to test if maybe today was the day it would turn. This is how real change happens, not with a single act of heroism, but with countless small choices made in defiance of the shadow's warnings. Every evening, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, did I take one step today? If the answer is yes, honor it. If the answer is no, don't collapse into guilt. Guilt is just another disguise the shadow wears to keep you stuck. Instead, return to your intention tomorrow, because this is not about never falling, it's about always rising. The people who build lives they are proud of are not the ones who never stumble. They are the ones who stumble and stand up over and over until standing becomes their natural state. Don't underestimate the power of community in this process. Jung believed that isolation fuels the shadow. When you keep your struggles secret, they grow in the dark. But when you share your truth with someone safe, a friend, a mentor, even a stranger who understands, you rob the shadow of its favorite weapon: shame. Speaking your goals out loud makes them real. It also creates accountability, a force that multiplies your courage when your own resolve falters. Tonight, I invite you to choose one small action, not a revolution, just a single proof that you are willing to meet yourself in the arena of change. Maybe it's a phone call you've been avoiding, a walk around the block, or the simple act of writing down what you want without apology. Whatever it is, do it before your mind can talk you out of it. Then do it again tomorrow, and the next day. With every repetition, the shadow's voice will grow quieter. And in that quiet, you will discover something extraordinary. That you are not defined by your fear, your procrastination, or the old stories you inherited. You are defined by what you choose to do next. You've now seen how your unconscious fears quietly shape your life, sabotaging your ambition and keeping you trapped in cycles of resistance. But the power to break free isn't in knowing more, it's in doing more. Ask yourself right now, what small step can you take today to disrupt your shadow's grip? Don't just think about it, do it. Then tell us in the comments below. What's your shadow been whispering to you all this time? Share your experience. Connect with others on the same journey. Because real change happens when we speak our truth out loud. If this spoke to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your new story begins here.